So you guys are going to come up and meet us with the kite? Well, we're going to do, everyone, we got to get your crowd here. Why don't we just talk right now? Let me just talk for 10 minutes.
Attention.
Chris wants to go, not be here. Chris cannot be here.
I'm just saying, like, that's what I was saying. You should start talking. Because basically we're just hanging around. So,
all right, well.
Ready, set, go.
Maybe you can sit down, too.
Well, we did, but then you kept taking the kites.
Sorry. Well, I was waiting for their folks to come in. They just walked in.
It's all good now,
They're all ears.
All right.
Okay, I also just quickly, we have Dr. Alex Golger here. Could you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Alex. I'm one of the faculty here down at LUMCON. So I'm a coastal geologist. I look at how why we gain land and lose land here in the Delta, what drives the Mississippi Delta, how it works and how it functions. So I'm here. I have an office here, and I also worked with Shannon and Stuart and Jeff and actually Chris on other stuff. So I've worked with a number of I've worked with a number of you in some forms, and I'm looking forward to working with more of you in other forms.
And Jeff,
we also had Jeff and Alex Miller, who's not here at the moment, and Chris and Matt joined us well after we did introductions yesterday. So if you have not sought them out, maybe good people to say hello to, but maybe you could just quickly kind of say what your interest is, and we'll move on.
All right, I'm Jeffrey Goodman. Alex Miller is answering calls. We are both planners in New Orleans, and I've known Jeff for 10 years. And we also have a sideline with a sort of planning collaborative that does sort of like people-based designs for organizing space. So that's our deal.
I'm Chris Esposito. I think the description that Alex gave of what he does fits pretty well for what I do as well, except I'm not on the faculty anywhere. I'm a graduate student at Tulane University.
I'm Matt Pendergraft. I'm also a grad student at Tulane. I'm working on kind of a geochemical issue using this system that's like a separation system. Look at the mixing and degradation of the oil from the BP oil spill. Study sites of Grand Isle and Barataria Bay.
So this talk is supposed to be an intro and state of our kit, except we're about to go outside and you're going to see very clearly what the state of the kit is. So I figured I wouldn't bore you indoors with that. So here's a picture. This is the Japanese kite festival. I thought I'd start with this because I just want to talk about a few technical things, but mainly I want to talk about what would it be to have a integrated culture of kites and balloons for mapping, and what it looks like to have a culture of flying, in your neighborhood. So these are mostly young people, all ages, flying very large kites, as you can see in Japan. These are amateur-built kites. And I picked Japan. I could have picked any Asian country. Kites are really big, and all from India all the way up to China and Indonesia and all across the Polynesia. But I picked Japan because of a few things. Well, their kites are rectangular and very simple looking and easy to make because a whole crowd of people get together to build them because they're based on simple, reproducible tasks. So like this kite that's flying, which is about 12 feet tall, was built with only one knot. The whole thing was, all Japanese kites are pretty much all tied with just a, we call it a half hitch, or double half hitches. So it's just a bunch of simple little steps of tying together these rectangular kites, something that people can come together and do, and produce these giant flying kites. And flying is a lot of fun, and that's something we should always make sure that we include in our projects. And this is what these kites are for, though. They're for fighting. So these are two kites colliding into each other in midair, which is something teenagers love doing. They build kites and they use them to destroy other people's well-built objects. But we don't have to be around kite flying. Around kite fighting, we can do kite flying for all sorts of reasons. And here they are, they're all having fun, and this points out one of the things I like about kites and balloons, right? There's a string tied to all those people on the ground. Someone goes out and they find that kite, and they're like, oh, hey, who are those cool people flying kites? And when they find them, and they talk, and they're like, oh, this is really neat. It's a very social activity. It's a great way to engage on the ground and in your community while getting imagery. And so this is what it looks like to have a culture of flying. And then, so I was inspired by those. These are one of my Tyvek kites from last year, built with a similar system of splitting bamboo. But in many ways, I was importing a Japanese style of building kites, getting bamboo from a specialized supplier. So while the construction wasn't particularly difficult, it was not really something that was embedded in our culture. And we're working on kites that are easier to build. You'll see those today. But I want a bunch of those. You can tell it works because people are happy. It's a nice thing about the technology, right? If you think about a drone, you can tell it works because there's a guy hunkered in the back of an SUV with a radio system, you know, being paranoid. But here, people are outside smiling, which is cool. So we're going to go really high. This is one of the Delta kites flying high altitude. But of course, everybody's done this before. Oh man, that's spilled out. So what you can't see here is giant parafocal kite that says 20 square meters, 10 to 20 square meters. This is from the Ceres Observatory in Colorado. They were doing this in the 80s. They're flying about, they would fly to 3,000 to 10,000 feet, giant kites, and then they fly up and down the kites with a meteorological payload. And we're talking about air column monitoring. They've been doing this for a long time. Get air samples all the way up this line to profile the atmosphere. And you'll notice, look at that, they arrive at pretty much the same thing we do, right? Container with a fin on the back, hanging off. Now they're flying up and down the line, but same basic idea. So it's all been done. And they were having a heck of a lot of fun. So they're smiling. And there's a kite behind a boat. It's a little difficult because it's blown out. And then I think this is important. You know, here they are, they figured out how to fly this kite off the rear wheel of their car. Notice that this is an El Camino. So real fun is being had. It's possible. But we also fly balloons, and flying observational balloons is a pretty old hat. This is a Prussian military balloon from the late 19th century. It's pretty much identical to these, which is, this is an American, the Prussians were inspired. They sent in military advisors to the U.S. during the Civil War. The Union flying the USS Washington, or the UBS, United States Balloon, whatever. This is the balloon off the monitor. They're doing observational balloons during the Civil War, quite successfully. Very much, this is basically the technology we're using, although they're using 3 lines here. This is a Cocodrie style, French style balloon flying off a ship. Navy was doing this, 19-teens. And they still do, because balloons are a really great way to lift payloads. The one thing they don't do is fly these on the front lines like they used to. Because, you know, having a giant gas bag in the middle of a battlefield is pretty incongruous. Things are going to get popped. And that's one of the other things I like about balloons and kites. Like, this is like possibly one of the least aggressive technologies you can have. You know, no one's going to accuse you of mounting a gun on your balloon. It's like, I'm not scared of them. And this is like a contemporary, so this is kind of future directions. This is a contemporary small balloon. This is a Sky Star, there's a Kingfisher, there's several like this that are commercial balloons. And this is basically a compressed, not quite a spherical balloon with a tiny sail behind it. And I think we should go towards making something like this. So we already get pretty close. This is one of Stewart's balloons with 4 attachment points that gives it a nice stability. And you can see that we could probably put a sail on the back of that and stabilize it. But these balloons are heavy. It'd be really great to make a really nice small foil balloon and have the whole thing fit in a briefcase. Oh, like this patent, which expires in 9 days. So this is a Charles Mears balloon. This is what I'm planning on spending next spring working on. It's basically, you can see, it's a party balloon, just a single seam. It's just a party balloon that's 6 feet in diameter with a little sail on the back. And I mean, wouldn't it kick butt if we could fit the whole thing in a suitcase? We could like, you know, walk in the whole kit. So that's kind of future directions and some ideas about culture of flight. And let's go fly some kites and balloons.